There's more. Let's turn to CTV's Colton Praill, who's in Ottawa for us. So BC is opposed, Alberta is for. How do you think this is going to shake out, Colton?
That's the big question and the big challenge in all of this. BC listed a number of issues, and one of them is absolutely the lack of collaboration. They feel they were not involved with this. David Eby saying he learned about the proposed MOU or the reported MOU through the media. He spoke with Mark Carney on Monday. He was very frustrated in that press conference yesterday afternoon about not having been involved in the discussions. He was also quite concerned about the use of taxpayer dollars, calling for that not to be a part of this, or for at the very least, if it was to progress to that stage, for there to be a cap on taxpayer dollars. He also warned that this could negatively impact BC's own major projects that have already been approved by the MPO. One of those that could be impacted, potentially a hydroelectric transmission line into the Yukon. And so there are a number of concerns that Mr. Eby has raised to the Prime Minister. On the issue of collaboration in particular, this is something that we have heard the government say isn't going to be overlooked, that they will, when it comes to whatever major project, whether it's a pipeline or others, ensure that any work they are doing to remove barriers to that project is done in conjunction and with the support of involved First Nations and the local jurisdiction. That was the words used by Tim Hodgson in a committee in Parliament yesterday in the House of Commons. Just moments ago, Mark Carney said that any MOU he signs with Alberta will, in his words, create the necessary conditions but not sufficient conditions for a pipeline, adding that First Nations and BC will both need to agree in order for a project like that to move forward.
Well, do you think that's likely? Because Premier Eby of British Columbia has firmly said no way, no how.
Likely is the big question. And, you know, as much as you can create the regulatory environment, and that is what sources tell us this MOU will look to do. It'll look to skirt some of those environmental regulations under the Trudeau era, like the tanker ban, like the emissions cap, like the industrial carbon tax. As much as you can create a regulatory environment, and that is part of the challenge that oil and gas has denoted as limiting private investment. The other half of the challenge is ensuring that there is buy-in from all stakeholders. And at this point in time, coastal First Nations and BC have both clearly said they are not interested. And so the question becomes, if this is laying the regulatory framework, or if this is creating an opening for private capital, on whom does the onus fall to ensure that there is also buy-in? Is it the federal government? Is it the Albertan government? Is it a combination of those two, as well as a private proponent? That part remains to be clarified and likely won't be entirely clear until you see the full details of the MOU that we expect to be signed on Thursday.
And to whom does the bill fall is the other piece of this question. We'll get to that probably, hopefully later in the week. Maybe that'll be months down the road, actually. But let's shift gears for a second, Colton, and talk about the Prime Minister in question period today doing a bit of damage control. What can you say, tell us about that?
Yeah, so a big moment from the PM's G20 press conference over the weekend. He was asked about when he last spoke with Donald Trump, and in a moment of very obvious frustration, he said, "Who cares?" And then later on went on to say he has no burning issue that he needs to talk to Donald Trump about. It was a rather flippant remark that he made over the weekend. Today in question period, asked about that by the Conservative leader, pressed on that. They have made this a line of attack. Here's what Mark Carney had to say.
When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is, what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
Now, it's important that we caveat this with, while the PM did have a mea culpa moment there, he also started that answer with a shot at the opposition leaders, saying that he had made a promise to Canadians when he was elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some other members of the chamber today, a shot at Pierre Poilievre for losing his seat on election night. So keep that in mind as that was the tone of the overall apology.
All right, okay. CTV's Colton Praill reporting from Ottawa. Thanks for that, Colton.
Anytime.